Alright, so we're going to continue on in Siman Niddah. Bezat Hashem will finish the Siman, a few short seifim, not too complex, nonetheless relevant halacha, the Ma'aseh. But I do want to review some points that I made last time that perhaps upon reviewing my notes I may not have been clear. And they concern one of the last halachas, Siv Zayin especially, if the Veset came about during the time of pregnancy or during the time of nursing. Now this is a halacha that we'll talk a little bit more in detail when we get to Siman Pei Tes, which is a very long Siman, which discusses a lot of other issues as well. But here, nonetheless, it mentions it because we're talking about Veset, introduced to the concept of Veset, and we're told that there are times that this Veset can be interrupted. So we're learning about certain interruptions, certain things that can cause the Veset to go off its usual rhythm. And one of them is a woman who becomes pregnant. Another one is a woman who's nursing the baby. Unfortunately, sometimes it could happen that she didn't come out alive. She had a nefil, miscarriage, and she's still, in a sense, a mesulekes domim, as it's called in halacha. Her blood, because of her body changes, that blood that would ordinarily come out could be held back for a little while. So she may have a similar status, even though it was a miscarriage. So this, of course, all these kinds of incidents would require further investigation. Today we're machmir, because nature has changed. Not just nature as a whole, but for people, for human beings, for women. And because of that, we're sometimes concerned that even during a time that we say that she's supposed to be mesulekes damim, that she's not supposed to be seeing her blood, she still may see it. So this is what I want to clarify a little bit. Pregnancy and nursing women, as opposed to the other issue that we covered briefly, was if a woman was in fear, she was hiding. I think that was pretty much clarified sufficiently. And I don't know how many women today are frightened except by cockroaches. And I don't know if that spiders. And I don't know if mice. Yeah. And I don't know if that will be sufficient to remove the blood. But we did say that this is a prolonged form of hiding, that perhaps the fear or the anxiety causes the blood to stay put. As a result of that, she may not have her Veset. So there are all kinds of situations. We just enumerated a few that are brought in the halacha. But getting back to pregnancy, we are machmir in the sense that we consider the woman mesulekes damim, that most likely she will not have her Veset, and therefore doesn't have to be concerned about that day when she's beyond the 3 months point, not before that. So after she's completed her first trimester, beginning her 4th month, we can assume that's the point of that you can tell by most women she's pregnant. And at that point, things I think have settled to the point where she should be mesulekes damim. It doesn't mean she will for sure not see blood. There is always that possibility that she see blood, and then if she has to deal with it like she would ordinarily. Blood is blood, unless it's from an injury, of course, or something else. But coming from the Makor, it's of course going to be problematic. Of course, you need to see a doctor. The Hilchas Niddah would still apply, if that's what we're talking about, blood coming from the core. But she should not be concerned about it. She doesn't have to look forward to it or look out for it, because it shouldn't be coming. So that's after the first trimester. Well, the question is, what happens before the first trimester? A woman can know, especially these days, that she's pregnant before the first trimester. Technically, she's pregnant. Does pregnancy itself bring about siluk damim, that the blood goes away, or does it have to be 3 months? We don't know for sure at what point the body prevents the blood from coming out. And so we're more concerned about the first 3 months, even though it may have been seen that women after perhaps 1 month, especially these, no longer get their period if they're 1 month pregnant. Or it is true. I mean, you can ask many pregnant women that after a very short while, once it has been confirmed that they are pregnant, they no longer have their Veset. Still, all the poskim that I've seen pretty much say we're machmir. We don't assume that until 3 months have gone by. Therefore, she should just be on the lookout for chosheshet. In other words, she should be chosheshet. She should be concerned about the day she ordinarily would see. If it's a Veset Kavua, it's a Veset Kavua on that particular day. If it's not a Veset Kavua, then she has other days to look out for. She should at least look out for them. And she should just not assume nothing will happen. Even during the regular time she sees it. No, it may happen. So therefore, in the very beginning, early stages of pregnancy, just be on the lookout. Now, what I did say last time that I'm not really sure if everybody agrees with, we were speaking about chumras. And the chumrah that I was familiar with, that I saw, was that during those 3 months, the first trimester, if she does not see any blood, which very likely she may not, I explained last time that in itself does not oker haveset, does not uproot the veset, because if a woman does not see 3 times in a row, in when she regularly sees, that's a very good indicator that veset is no longer her veset. She may have a new veset, right? In the same way, chazaka brings of seeing a veset during a certain day of the month, during a certain amount of time that has elapsed, creates a veset of a certain views, a certain constancy or steadiness. In the same way, is akirata veset. In other words, she did not see it for 3 times in a row, of course, is what she's usually seeing every 30 days, for example. So she's okera veset. Not necessarily during the first 3 months. That's the way I explained it last time. That's the way I saw it. It brought down that because during that 3 months she may not see it at all to begin with because she's pregnant, so that in itself is not proof. And that's a big nafkamina, because when she goes back to her regular period after pregnancy and is over, she may end up going back to her original veset. So don't think, that's what we said at least last time, that just because she didn't see it 3 times in a row during the first 3 months, she's lost her veset. According to that one opinion that I saw, no, we're machmir all the way. In other words, on the one hand, we're concerned that she may get it. On the other hand, she did not see it. We don't say it's akiras aveset. It could still be she'll get it eventually. It's just because she's pregnant that she hasn't seen it. I saw somebody else say the exact opposite. He says, well, once we say that we're choshesh, we're concerned about her maybe getting her veset to the first time, that means if she doesn't see it, that it's also okera veset. So he's lenient in that. All right. Anyway, if it ever comes up, we'll deal with it. If we're machmir, but the one opinion appeared to be very lenient, that 3 times in a row you didn't see it, you may see it. So since you didn't see it, well, it's gone.
What is then?
No, so that particular veset she has is gone. Eventually she'll have to establish a new veset.
Doesn't that make the situation seeing it?
Oh, well, she'll just have to figure out when the next one is, the first time she sees it.
So it depends, so now she has to check herself.
Afterward.
18 days.
No, after her nursing, nursing, she'll have to look out for at least ona benonit, as we'll see, 30 days. But otherwise, she'll have to figure out when it comes, when her new veset is established.
Three times after that?
If she has a real veset, a regular veset. A lot of women don't have regular veset that is established. So therefore, they have to be concerned about haflaga, about yom hachodesh, about ona benonit, 3 days. They have to be concerned about, because they don't really, some women are chatzi kavua, there was, I won't see it before the 25th day and not after the 30th day. We ran into that with the Ramah. Mm-hmm. That also causes a little bit of confusion as to which days should you look out for. So obviously a regular is the best thing, but I don't know too many that have in our times, very, very fit. But at least it could be chatzi kavua, and at least it eliminates some doubts about not too early, not before this date and not after that. But eventually we'll talk about it. When we get to that Siman, we'll get into it. Niddah, I'll prepare you some charts if you want to see how it all fits in. All right, so that was the one thing that I did notice, that there is an opinion that says you can be lenient about that visit. All right. The other thing was about a nursing woman. A nursing woman, it's very, very clear. We'll talk about that also later. She's granted 24 months. Whether she's nursing or not, she's called mesulekes domim for 24 months. In other words, 24 months and not more. What does that mean? It means that 24 months, the Chachamim tell us that the body will not function the same. And this is whether she's nursing or not, she has that status. The only thing is that experience has shown, and this is where I wasn't clear last time, experience has shown that once she stops nursing, she goes back to having her veset. Obviously, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But experience has shown that if she, and even the non-Jewish world will tell you, nurse, and you have a smaller chance of pregnancy. Guaranteed? No. But smaller chance of pregnancy? Yes. So nurse if you don't want to become pregnant right away. And experience has shown that if a woman stopped nursing, she, within the 24 months, she will see her Veset. She will go back to her original Veset, or to some Veset. So what does that mean? So even though we consider her Mesulekes Damim, on the one hand, which means that she's not Kovea any new Veset during that time, just like she's not Kovea Veset during pregnancy. She's not supposed to get. So we're saying she's Mesulekes Damim. On the other hand, we are Choishesh. Because women have gone back, especially they stopped nursing, right? They have gone back to seeing blood within it. So there are a lot of poskim who are machmir that women should check themselves during the time that they are nursing. During the 24 months, even though, especially that they're not nursing. Obviously, a woman that is nursing, the chances are that she will not see it for a while. So that 24-month period of time is a very important time, because beyond that, she should be expecting to see. They said 24 and not more. There's even a question of what about a leap year? There's a machlokes. Some say, oh no, a leap year is at least 25 months. No, we hold 24. So there's something about the 24 months that she has a status of mesulakis. I mean, nonetheless, we are choshesh because nature has changed that the period can come back, especially so when she stopped nursing. Then she has to be concerned about it. So on that I mentioned what Rabbi Elyahu said. Nonetheless, when does she have to be concerned? As of which point she stopped nursing? As soon as the first time she sees blood. In other words, so long as she doesn't see blood, she still has that status. So that's important to remember. The status is there. That won't go away. We're machmir because if she doesn't nurse, experience has shown that they didn't see blood. So the Rabbi Elyahu says, so when does she happen? As of the moment the first time she sees blood after she stopped nursing. Then she has to check. Oh no, before that, no. Before that, especially when she's nursing, there's no need to check. Not only that, even the day of the Veset itself, when a woman is pregnant, as we said, there's no need for checking, even on that day itself. So that's pretty much a little bit of a clarification of that particular, pregnancy, and that are special statuses. Nonetheless, there are times that we are machmir only because nature has changed, and we have to be concerned ourselves in the beginning stage of the pregnancy and during the 24 months when she's not, especially when she's not. All right, so we're going on to Sif Tes. So after we've discussed women who are pregnant and nursing, or women who are in hiding, the Mechaber goes back and says, what about all the rest of the women? And we're not talking about the elderly, because that we already mentioned that, of course, she is a separate category. She has no blood. Shar noshim, on the average, regular other women, tzrichot bdika, they need to check themselves, ksheyagia veset. They need to check themselves, that's the halacha, when the veset comes, if they know when the veset is, of course. What happens if avara veset velo batka? And that's where the big deal begins here. What happens if the time of the veset came by and she just forgot about it? She didn't check herself. Velo yirgisha, neither did she feel anything, and that's an important nekuda. She didn't feel at all, because a lot depends on Argosha, as we said, please midaraisa. So she didn't feel anything. Tehora velo bdika. So the first opinion, the Mechaber says that she's clean even without checking. In other words, time went by, she didn't check, she didn't feel, that's the extra emphasis here, she's clean even without checking. The time has passed, a day or two later. Nothing happened. And usually, you have to remember, usually a woman sees blood, she'll see it for a number of days, and it will be substantial. It will be noticeable. She may even feel it. The problem is that sometimes it's not necessarily going to be several days, like we said before. It's not going to be shofat or mezalefet, staining, sprinkling, running. It just may be a one-time thing. And it could be that little bit of blood that she had got lost. And all of a sudden, if she were to check herself, she doesn't see anything. There is that concern. And that's where the second opinion comes in and says, V'yesh omrim she'asura. She's asur ad shetivdok, until she checks herself. Im yesh la veset kavua. If she has a veset kavua, she's asur to be with her husband until she first checks herself. Now the problem is, I just said, that there's always a chance that even if she checks herself now, it may be too late. And that was a concern. In the Gemara, the whole sugya talks about this. And the different machlokesim regarding this shitas is whether you hold Veset is the Raisa or Veset is the Rabbanan. And whether checking is a requirement the Raisa or checking is a requirement the Rabbanan. There are two issues here. The Veset itself and the checking. So that whole machlokes depends on do you need to be chosh or not? It depends on if you hold this the Raisa or the Rabbanan. That is why we have a machlokes here. So there's always that little concern that if she checks too late, that won't help her. But according to the first opinion, if she didn't feel anything, that was the nekuda that was added here. Tahora believed dikab. The second one says asura achetivduk. Why? Because first of all, we hold there's a good likelihood that the oreach babizman, the guest, as it's called, came in time. There's no reason to say that it didn't come. It usually comes on time. So there's reason to believe it came. And she has to check im yeshla v'se kavua, or yom lamed afal pi she'eno kavua, or if it's the 30th day, even though it's not kavua, ve'ochi nohug v'chenu lekamon simen kuf peites, as we'll see later on. We follow the second opinion that a woman that did not check on time when she should have checked before she takes any and tells her husband it's okay. Who says it's okay? This is a time. Check yourself first. So there's certain times that has to be done. We have to assume, and as we'll soon see, what's the big deal? Why not check? Well, that why not check is what if she's asleep? We will see that later on. Now, when I say asleep, I didn't mean completely, because the halacha is that a man should not be with his wife when she's complete, but she may be semi-asleep. Especially, we need to know these halachas, because what if the husband comes back, he's been out of town for 4 weeks? Wants to know what the status is, and she's half asleep. So we'll talk about that soon. So these are certain things that have to be taken into consideration. And a woman does not have to check herself every day, of course, but as the Veset arrives, she should check. She should, assume it's coming. We will soon see how many times to check. That's called Ona Benodin. Ona, that's the average, the normal, the natural period of time for women to see one period and another period. She doesn't have a Veset Kavua, she doesn't have regular, then she would check at least on the 30th day from the last time.
Check more.
Right, she doesn't have to check more.
Yeah, if she
not to check, right, not to check.
Right, she sees it, but...
Right. Well, she doesn't have a Veset Kavua, she does have those other periods of time that she has to check ordinarily. That she has to be concerned with, that's to be choishish. But the checking, yes, the checking is only on Abedondit.
So that if she does see blood, that blood problem.
Right. Choshesh means that the husband has to be poirish from his wife if she doesn't have a Veset Kavua during those 3 possible days. Here, what we're talking about is when does she have to check herself?
And on the 30th day.
What?
To be porridge for all days.
Yes, exactly. Right. That's the only day she would have to check herself here. So the Mechaber says, "Im yesh la Veset Kavua," check herself then, or shu yom lamed, afal pi she'ena kavua, ve'ochi nohug. That would be the only one. Okay. So just to review it a little bit more in depth, as I said, the Gemara discusses this sugya. In this sugya, basically, if you follow the sugya, you see that the whole gamut of opinions there is pretty much delineated in two camps. You say the camp that holds that Veset is the Reiser versus Veset Rabbanan, because you have various, various hechetimtzes or various opinions, various explanations, and they all pretty much come down to either you hold Veset is the Reiser and therefore you're more Machmir, or you hold that Veset is the Rabbanan and therefore you're being more Mekel.
From what you said,
yeah.
on the 30th.
Right.
Let's say she checked on anything.
Right.
On the check again?
No problem. Yeah. Once a woman has done her job, it could be that this time she's not getting it. It happens that she skipped the month.
So she doesn't have to keep her period of time. It's
No. Right, that's it. If the Veset didn't come, and it happens.
No.
Right. A Veset Kavua. Right.
She doesn't have that's the 30th day.
Right.
30th day.
Yeah. A person has to be choishish on all the potential dates. That's something else. To be poirish, to be choishish, he has to be on all. But as far as checking
All
her...
the potential dates again?
haflaga, the time that has elapsed between the last two periods, it could be 28 days. Yom HaChodesh, last time she started on the 5th day of the month, to be Chodeshish, they have to be put, right? And then you have Ona Benonit, every 30 days.
So the Ona Benonit and the that's not the same time.
Sometimes it is. So sometimes it's only 2 days versus
the
3.
same, yeah.
Because the Haflaga and the Benoni could be the same, or the Yom HaChodesh and the Benoni could be the same. Exactly.
Yom HaChodesh.
It could be.
Because
Depends.
how many days will be 1 or 3?
Exactly. So it all depends on the month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, depends on.
Yeah, it all depends. That's why I think when we see it in a chart, it'll yeah, to shape will come. Yeah. And by the way, speaking about charts, women should really have a chart, a calendar, or where they be able to figure out, even before they're married, how regular or irregular they are, and pretty much follow that and know what to expect.
That's
Oh yeah? There's an application for it? Or are you making one right now?
many
Yeah, okay, good.
yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, because
Okay.
non-Jewish women might get pregnant.
Okay, so you'll tell me
So you
about it.
have-
Yeah, good to know. Is it in C sharp or?
There might be, but that we read about.
Yeah, all right, yeah. Anyway, that's interesting. I guess somebody thought about it.
But you
They do what?
have to let you track it out and give you
Not the man's period, the woman's period.
the ones that I've seen
Yeah, well,
who
yeah.
actually direct I could use it too if there's any.
Right, okay. Yeah. All right, good. So the Gemara, in discussing this, mentions that those who are more lenient is because they hold that Vesed is the Rabbanan. So therefore, if the Vesed went by and she didn't check, she's clean. Now, based on that Gemara, there was a Machlokes Rishonim. So I'm giving you a little bit of background now. We usually do the background first, but it's okay. Based on that Gemara, there's a Machlokes Rishonim. The Ran brings down that the Rif and the Rambam hold that, based on that Gemara, that even without any B'dika, she's completely clean, as long as she didn't see anything, of course, and she didn't feel. So why did the Gemara say the Tibadik, that she has to check herself? According to the Rif and Rambam, all it means is that Chazal required the B'dika in the Yom HaVesed, but that B'dika is not Me'akev. Why? I mean, she has a Chazaka that she's Tahara. She has a Chazaka, she didn't feel anything. So, obviously, if she could check, but she doesn't have to, according to this opinion. Nothing happened. Tosfos and the Ramban and the Rashba holds that a woman is usher until she checks herself. And only if she checks herself and she's clean is she Tahara. In other words, even though she didn't check close to her Vesed, and there may be that concern that I told you before, that maybe, well, now it's too late. Maybe now there's no blood, but there was blood had she checked on time. That Ad Kedei Kach were not so machmir. But by the way, this idea of timing is very, very important. When a woman checks herself before she begins, that's something else. During the time that she's about to prepare herself for Shiva Nekina, timing is important. She has to check herself properly. She doesn't want to miss a day. But here we're talking about based on the Manda Omar. Even if you hold the Manda Omar that a Vesed is the Rabbanan, she should check herself as soon as possible, even though she didn't check herself on time. And that is how we follow. The Mechaber brings the two shitas, and we follow the second shita, as we will see in Kuf Pei Tes. That she should have, and since she didn't, what we understand is that she should still do it. And as long as she doesn't do it, she cannot be with her husband. Because we're expecting it, simple. Okay, now the question is, what's not brought down here for some reason, is how many times should she check herself? Let's say her Vesed was today. The morning, the middle of the day. When? There are some opinions who hold that she should just put something, she should wear white underpants during that. There's even an opinion that holds that she should put something inside because expecting it. But we're not that machmir requiring that. As long as she checked herself once, towards the end of the day is sufficient. I think Rav Moshe says that, I think the Chazon Ish also said, that a woman should check herself at least several times during the morning, or morning, afternoon, or whenever it is that she has her Vesed. It doesn't say how many times, but that's what is advisable, at least. Okay, now that we have more or less an idea of what a woman needs to be aware of her Vesed, what about if a woman takes pills? So we got to extend this halacha into modern day scenarios, And in modern days, is that some women take, and the pills can be for a variety of reasons. To regulate the period, to prevent pregnancy, especially for a kala, that she doesn't want on the day of her chuppah to have this problem. So many of them take pills to regulate it, or to not have it at all. There's different kinds of pills that do, and the pills, of course, do something to the body. That's obvious. And I'm not so sure how healthy these are. By the way, that's my personal opinion. Ingesting something into the system, who knows what the after effects are.
I should search that.
Yeah.
A lot of the later take those pills.
A lot of the what?
All
kinds of things? I don't know. Yeah. Who knows? They won't tell you that either because they don't know, or because, why should they tell you? They want to sell you the pills. So, but one thing, ingesting pills actually, the pills are one of the safest, I should say safest.
You said you were concerned just about this, but in general.
No, I'm talking about this kind of pills. Only this kind of pills. It is one of the safest, not medically safe, but safest methods of preventing pregnancy. In other words, maybe safe is not the right word. One of the most secure or guaranteed, the strongest method of preventing pregnancy. Women who are looking for a strong contraceptive, and they know how to use it, right, and they're constant, and they take it when they're supposed to, it could work for them. And of course, one should not do that unless she does it in consultation with a rabbi, depending on the circumstances of why she would want. But there are times when the doctors will advise a woman to do so with a kala, to regulators, or for some other reason later on too. Now, so what if a woman takes pills? And the nature of these pills is to take or to hold back the blood. I saw it's brought down in the Shuchan Aruch that if at 3 times, there was 3 occasions, 3 times when she's supposed to see her blood, her period, she did not see as a result of the kadurim, as a result of the pills, then she doesn't have to be chosheshet anymore to her regular vessel because the pills have accomplished that in 3 times. In other words, here we're still talking about chosheshet. Is she chosheshet, not chosheshet? Should she check? Should she not check? If she, now, and we introduced a woman who takes pills. What about she takes pills to regulate or to prevent her from seeing blood? Does she have to be chosheshet anymore? She's not supposed to see blood. Only if 3 times she did not see blood as a result of those pills. So this is like a kiras aveset in a sense as a result of taking the pills. Obviously, if there's no such chazakah, then you are choshesh. I saw that brought down in the name of Rabbi Elyahu that with a kala can be more lenient, that even though she does not have a chazakah, she didn't take pills for 3 months, but she started taking the pills close enough to her wedding date, that we assume that those pills do the job right and will prevent her from seeing blood, that she doesn't have to be choshesh exactly on that night, the chuppah night, even though it's close to the time when she sees it regularly, that she will have it nonetheless. We can be make of that even though she has no chazakah, that she took it, that 3 times in a row she didn't see blood as a result of the pills, which is ordinarily what you would require, not to be choshesh, but with a kala, you can be a little bit more lenient. It's because of her situation. We're makel with her.
If you want the couple into
the mitzvah, for the sake of the mitzvah, right? So we're because of the sake of the mitzvah,
and
we assume that the pills are doing the job.
So
we relax the requirement of 3 times, right? Right, exactly. Okay, so that was Sif Tes about to check during the time of the vessel, or if she's on a vessel kavua, at least during the 30th day. Sif Yud, הרוצה לצאת לדרך. There's a mitzvah for a man, lifkod et ishto, the Chachamim say, to be intimate with his wife before he goes on a prolonged trip, not a 1-day trip. That's a good question. A couple days, yeah. It's a mitzvah. Yeah, good question. It doesn't say, it just says 1 day is not going to 1 day. 1 day. So the chorah, if it's more than that, yeah. But especially if it's a longer trip, the nature of the woman is to want her husband then, and because of that, it's a mitzvah to be with her. So Mechaber brings down this halacha, that הרוצה לצאת לדרך צריך לפקוד אשתו אפילו סמוך לבסתה, even if it's close to her veset. Okay, now we have a problem here. סמוך לבסתה, She could be getting her period any day now, any moment now. So, yes, it's a big mitzvah, but does this mitzvah cancel out or push us the chashash? And the answer is yes. But it depends. There's a machloikes or rishonim. What does lifkod mean? Is this lifkod that ishto mean intimacy? Or perhaps a kiss or a hug is enough? He has to do something. Everybody agrees that he has to do something. So that's the machloikes rishonim. Rashi, Ravid, Rashba, Beis Yosef brings them all down. Say that, no, it's the real thing. And not just any appeasement. And that's what the Mechaber pretty much goes along with. I think, and the Ramah also, that's what, and let me read to you the Ramah. The Ramah says, one who's more stringent about not being intimate, but just to appease her with a hug or a kiss, things like that. Tovalot brocha. Yeah. We already talked about this before, when we talk about poirish, during the time that the oina, you have to be poirish, we said that's only from tashmish, right? So therefore, anything else would for sure be okay. So the Ramah says, you know what? If you can be machmer and just get by with something else, tovalot brocha. Now, if he's going for a big mitzvah, he's a moyel. He's going to take care of the bris. Because he's so much thinking about the mitzvah right now that he cannot be focused. So he's potter. That's the halacha. That's the Gemara too. What if he wants to go somewhere for business or whatever, and his wife is still in Niddah, but she only has a few hours left to go till she can go to the mikveh. You know what? It's not right. She has 12 hours to go. She has one oina. She has day or the night left. Part of the day. Push off your trip. Change your reservations. Yeah. Some say that. Well, yeah. That's a great idea. I didn't think about it. Yeah.
If you're employed,
yeah, sure.
you will get a trip.
Yeah. All right. So with this halacha, as we see, there is a machlokes rishonim. Moshe Feinstein brings it down in his Chuvas, Chelek Gimel of Yore Deah. I saw it inside. That because, if you recall, we learned the Chasam Sofer. The Chasam Sofer says it could be that you hold Veset is the Rabbanan, but to be poirish from the wife, the one oina, Samach Levesta, is a deraisa. There are some who hold the Prisha is the deraisa. The Veset itself is the Rabbanan, the whole Indian of Veset. But to be poirish, that's a deraisa. So since the Chasam Sofer says he holds, like the ones who say that is at least a deraisa, Ramosha says one should be machmir in this din, like the Ramah. But you don't have to be so machmir as to also be machmir for the Or Zarua. Remember the Or Zarua, the Shita of the Or Zarua? A full day, not just one oina, the 24 hours. So if she gets her veses during the day, the night before is sufficient. You don't need the whole day. If her veset is at night, the day is sufficient. The night before will be fine. But the Or Zarua says the whole thing. 24-hour period. So Ramosha says that you don't have to be machmer, even though he says you should be machmer in this din, like the Chasam Sofer, to try to get by with something else other than intimate. He says you don't have to be machmer with, according to the Or Zarua, if it's the Or Zarua time frame of being poirish. He says if you can be machmer in that too, that's good. He says, but you don't have to. So, I mean, halacha l'maisa, we have a clear mechaber in the Ramah, just that there are achronim that were machmer because of the Chasam Sofer, to try to get by with something else other than Nisi, if it's possible, if at all possible. Okay, next halacha. Sif Yud Aleph. Isha sheyesh lo veset liyamim levad. A woman that only has a veset that depends on a certain amount of days. V'higia shat veset vesta asur lavo aleh ad sheishalena. And the time of the veset has arrived. The husband cannot be with her until he asks her, "Is everything okay?" This is similar to what we learned before. V'im ein la veset, and if she doesn't have the veset, a regular veset, then yom lamed l'riyoso have ki higia shas vesto. The 30th day is more likely than anything else that she would get her veset, and he has to ask her. So why is this important? Because before that, he doesn't ever have to ask her. Why would he want to ask? What kind of a thing is ask her? Since when does the husband ask her? She should tell the husband, because it's where he has come home, and this is the time. He has to ask him, by the way, is everything okay? As we're going to see, that the next part of the halacha is, let's say he comes home, and it's already enough time has transpired since her veset that it's enough for the amount of counting and the titbol, and that she probably could have at least gone to the mikveh by then. He can be with her without even asking her. And this takes us back to what I said earlier, that if she's completely asleep, it's not right. If you're a woman, if the wife is completely, but we're talking about semi-asleep, he doesn't have to ask her. If she's really in Niddah, she'll let him know, stop. So it is safe to assume, that's what the Mechaber is saying, telling us in this halacha, it's safe to assume that if a certain amount of time has transpired, since the normal time that she gets her veset, and the husband happens to know that time, where she has counted and gone to the mikveh, when he comes home, he can assume that she's clean. Now this is not so pashut. The Aruch HaShulchan on here says something very, very important. Many women today do not go to the mikveh when their husbands are out of town. And that's a whole question in itself, which will be Niddah, we'll talk about later. Should a woman go to the mikveh when her husband is not in town? The time has come. She's counted, she's clean. Should she go to the mikveh or not? There's some problems with going, and there's some problems with not going. So we'll see, there's two ways of looking at it, and the two ways are acceptable. But as the Aruch HaShulchan points out, if this woman does not go to mikveh, she's out of town, then the husband has to be careful. Even though he's right that by the time he has come home, enough time has elapsed. She counted, she's clean, she went to the mikveh, nonetheless, she did not go to the mikveh, because many women don't go when their husbands are out of town. So that's a very interesting point. I'm surprised why nobody else would say it. He'll bring it up. Okay, others bring it. Others mention it too. So here, what the Mechaber is talking about here, that if a woman's veset has come, that he has to ask her before he's with her. Here, obviously, the explanation of this Mechaber is we're talking about that the time of the veset has already gone. We're not talking about on the time of the veset itself, because obviously that day is asr. So when the Mechaber says a woman who has a veset, it means after that veset has gone by, he has to ask her, everything okay? Because that he doesn't have to ask, exactly. Why suspect? Unless she sees a stain. Not ask her, are you clean? A man never has, and not only that, we may have mentioned that a woman should not constantly check herself, right?
No, the question is,
can you what?
I'm sorry, my voice is not working efficient. Just on a regular day.
Well, intimacy is always something that has to be with.
What you were saying before.
Whoa. Oh, thank you. Okay. Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, you're right. Maybe that should be clarified. Obviously, intimate means intimate. Intimate is not chas v'shalom rape. There's no force involved. Forcing is usher for a man to force his wife, and it's not healthy. Not only for the marriage, it's not healthy for if any children come out as a result of that kind of a relationship. So when we talk about intimacy, generally speaking, but you're right, I should explain that. Generally speaking, we're talking about that it's consent. And not only that, the proper way to conduct yourself is also with what they call in English, I forget the exact word for it, but with the proper amount of preparation to lead onto the actual connection, because you don't want it to be spontaneous, you don't want it to be fast. The mitzvah of oina from the Torah means to give the woman her time, her attention, to show that you care about her. It's not only about yourself. That's a very significant point, and that's not so, even though that's also part of the halacha, it's even more than that. It's advice for how to have a successful physical relationship. which contributes also greatly to the overall relationship. So a very good point that you brought up, that obviously the man and the woman need to be aware of each other's needs, sensitivities, and to act accordingly. So here in this halacha of Aisha sheyesh lo vesel yomim levad, right? It's only talking about no sensation or anything, just days. The time of vesed has already gone by, really, even though he says Higia shat vesed. Also, lo v'oleh, until he asks on the time of the vesed itself, it's for sure also for him to be with her. So the Gemara and the Poskim talk a little bit about this whole sugi over here, about why there's no need to ask. Here, what you have is a spek sveika, right? You have a suffix of whether she's tmei or not, and even if she was, maybe she was toivel. So it's like a form of a spek sveika. And what do we say there? Here, the suffix of tovlo moitzi midei suffix rasa. That the suffix of tovlo, there's a good chance that she was toivel. It somehow neutralizes or takes care of the suffix that we have, gabe, maybe she saw or maybe she. But it's still a form of a spek sveika. And when we learned about spek sveika in Hilchos Taaruvot, a very important rule in general about the sveikas, but especially spek. If you can ask, then why not ask? Why make a spek sveika if you can figure it out by asking? We don't say spek sveika when we're able to ask and get an answer. So that's a good question. So why not ask? So here the answer is, I saw that the answer, one of the answers at least, is that you have an additional advantage over here, that you have a cheskes tahara. She has such a chazaka. Since she has a chazaka that she's clean, it's not a problem. You don't have to ask. Especially if darko litvo, especially if customarily she does immerse herself in the mikveh when the time comes. So this is going on the last portion of the halacha. So achar aveses shir shetispor vetitvol yovoleo ve'intzorch lishon. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the last part, not the first part. The last part, if enough time went by, then you don't have to ask, because we're assuming that she was there. But remember, the Aruch HaShulchan says you can't assume this today because many women do not go to the tefillah. Therefore, perhaps the halacha may be different based on that. So it all depends on the facts. What are the facts in these days? Okay, in the last halacha of the Siman, this one is a different kind of vesed. Hayelo vesed liyomim ule vesed mevestos aguf kegon kfitz. Let's say this woman does not only have a vesed of days, but she has another type of vesed. You know what that is? Every time she jumps, she gets her period. During the time that she's supposed to get her period. Okay? Not in the middle of the month, some other time. So, it's a combination of the two. It's a combination of the amount of days have gone by, plus something that will trigger it. What will trigger it? Jump roping. She jumps. Why is she jumping? Oh, okay, she jumps for whatever reason. She's playing. So she has seen it, that every time she jumps, plus the amount of time of days went by, would get her vesed. The combination of the two produces the vesed. Now, there's a long shach over here, which clarifies that we're not talking about a vesed michush, a vesed where a woman, every time she has the vesed, she also has a headache, her back hurts her, she has temperature. We're not talking about those kinds of sensations here, because those sensations are triggered by the vesed, whereas kfitza is the one triggering the vesed. You see the difference? With sensations, they come about as a result of the vesed. Here, it's the jumping that is triggering the vesed. So the Shach has a whole explanation over here that don't get confused about the two. Mechaber is talking about a combination of a woman who has a combination of vesed yamin and vesed mivestus aguf, kegoin kfitza, like jumping, v'chayoyseber, or similar activities. Kivan she'vesed talud b'maaseh, since the vesed is somewhat dependent on an act that will trigger it, Eimar lo kafza v'lo rasa. Then you can assume, you can say, well, if she didn't jump, then I don't have to ask her. I don't have to be choishish, because she would know if she jumped or not. Now, if she did jump, she would have to check herself. Just because if she didn't see doesn't mean anything. She would have to check herself, because then I would assume, yes, it did happen, but I could know if she jumped or not. So I can assume that if she does not have it, it could be she didn't jump. In other words, it's very possible that since the Vesed depends on the two, on the amount of days and on some activity, I'm safe to assume, I'm safe to assume that if she doesn't have anything, that it could be very possibly that she didn't jump, and because of that, she didn't see anything. Aval, still, even though she did not have those, even though she did not do anything to trigger it, and therefore she did not see anything, she still has to be choshesh for the Ona Benoni. The Ona Benoni, remember, is the most powerful one. Now we'll see on the average every 30 days, give or take. Give or take is what makes this complex. Is it less? Is it more? But if she did not see it by the 26th, 27th day, then she may see it by the 30th. That's what Ona Benoni says. A normal woman would see that by then. So she would still be choshesh for that, even though she usually has a Veset that comprises of two factors, days plus some triggering event. So on that, the Shach says that don't get confused with the other type of Veset, that if a woman has a Veset that is comprised of days and a michush, and some sort of sensation, what then? Well, just because you said, well, I didn't have a headache yesterday. Maybe you did, you just forgot about it. You had a coffee, and you got busy with your work, and you didn't feel your headache. The day went by, you forgot you had a headache. So the Shach says, so it's a long Shach over here, and explain that those kind of situations, you actually need the two of them. Remember we said, I think you asked last time, you actually need a combination of two, but it's very possible that forgot she had. And since it's already the time that she should be getting it, right? Then, of course, she doesn't have to be choshesh to Ona Benonit. What the Mechaber said, that she's choshesh to Ona Benonit, is because it could be she didn't trigger it, but she still has something coming. We're safe to assume that if she always gets it, it could be that she just didn't feel it. That's the thing. Now, if for sure she didn't have one or the other, as we said later on, the Mechaber says it has to. If her Veset consists of two, it's not one without the other. It always has to be the two. So when we get to that, we'll explain that a little bit more, how that works. But here the Shach is saying that don't think that this is the same as that. In the Mechaber's case, she still has to be choshesh le'ona benoni because she didn't trigger it. So it could be that because she didn't trigger it, she didn't see it. But when it comes to michushim, when it comes to all kinds of sensations, you have to, yes, be choshesh that the Veset went by, and she did feel. And she would have to, at the very least, check. And it's like similar to the other case where she didn't check, where she was expecting it. Because we're assuming that it did come. Just because she didn't feel, well, maybe she didn't realize it. It was so fast. So that's an important difference between the Mechaber's emphasis and what the Shach is trying to say. We're talking about two different things, so don't get it confused and think that you still have to be choshesh for Ona Benonit later on. No, not necessarily. Because if she did get it when she was supposed to, she just forgot, why should she have to be choshesh now for Ona Benonit? The Ona Benonit is only necessary because she didn't trigger the event. She always triggers the event by jumping. By the way, talking about jumping, there are women who do exercise. And there are women who do all kinds of strenuous activity, and it could be that through one of those activities, whatever it may be, together with the amount of days, she always sees her Veset. I think I've even heard about taking a hot bath. Because the Mechaber says, any similar event that may trigger the Veset to come, then it's safe to assume that if she did not do it, then it hasn't come yet. But even in that case, she would have to be choshesh to Ona Benonit. It doesn't mean she's going to get away with it, and there won't be any Veset. Just that it didn't come when she usually has it, because she didn't do anything. But with the Veset or the Mechushim, there is a chance that it did come. She just didn't realize. Okay, Hashem will continue next.